Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good evening everyone, dear Dhamma friends. Today also we are going to talk about some Dhamma fact. We are going to have a Dhamma discussion about the spiritual path. We have been talking about different aspects with the topic of prerequisites for the concentration. So we were talking about some important aspects about the moral virtue and the unwholesome deeds, the 10 unwholesome deeds what we have to avoid, the dasa kusala kammapata, and what we have to improve the wholesome deeds, the kusala kammapata, and we talked about the dasa punya kiriyavattu, 10 wholesome actions what we have to develop. So these are all we have talked on behalf of the qualifications or the prerequisites for the concentration. So today also we are going to talk about some facts before the concentration, what we have to pay the attention. As a Buddhist, we know our ultimate goal is Nibbana. For this thing, we talked about this thing several times. Now you know, as a Buddhist, the ultimate goal is Nibbana, and to achieve that Nibbana, whatever the bodhi you are like wishing to achieve, it may be the Shravaka Bodhi as a disciple, or it can be a Pacceka Buddha, or it can be a Sabbanya Buddha, or the Samma Sambuddha. So whatever the wish, whatever the ultimate goal you are trying to achieve, the practice is, the time period may be differ, and the ultimate, the goal what you achieve, the quality of that achievement will be different, but ultimately we are achieving the same Nibbana. And to achieve that Nibbana, everyone should achieve the 4 paths as a stream entry, path of the stream entry, that means the Sotapatti Magga, and the path of the once returner, the Sakadagami Magga, and the path of non-returner, the Anagami Magga, and path of the Arahant, the Arahatta Magga. Everyone should achieve these 4 paths, and after the paths we are achieving the fruitions also. Anyway, these paths should be achieved by anyone who wish to achieve the Nibbana. So the practice should be the structure of the practice would be the same. That is the Sila, Samadhi and Panya. We have to practice the moral virtue, and we have to develop the concentration, and ultimately we have to develop our wisdom by doing the insight meditation. That is the structure of the practice, of this spiritual practice. That is same for everyone. Everyone has to follow that thing. So in order to achieve the Nibbana, we know these paths, the fruitions, the noble paths should be developed or should be achieved. We should generate these noble paths within ourselves in order to achieve the Nibbana. So these paths, the generation of these paths is not a easy task. So it will take much time. It will take so much effort. You have to put so much effort for that. With a great effort, you can generate these 4 paths within you. The process is, you have to follow like a very efficient insight meditation in order to develop your wisdom. The 4 paths are the result of the wisdom that can be achieved only by the wisdom, not by Sila, not by Samadhi. It can be achieved by the wisdom. Sila and Samadhi, the moral virtue and the concentration, they are helping, but ultimately the 4 maggas, the paths, are achieved by the wisdom. So in order to develop that wisdom to that level, to achieve the 4 paths, you have to do the insight meditation, and you have to develop several like insight knowledges within you by developing the insight meditation. When we talk about the Satta Visuddhi, the 4 Maggas will be, we are talking under the Jnana Dassana Visuddhi. So the last step of the 7-fold purification path, that is the Jnana Dassana Visuddhi, the purification of the like the knowledge and the vision. So this is 4 Maggas. Before that, you have to achieve Patipada Jnana Dassana Visuddhi. Without achieving Patipada Jnana Dassana Visuddhi, you cannot achieve the Jnana Dassana Visuddhi. Patipada Jnana Dassana Visuddhi is the purification by vision and knowledge about the practice or about the path. So in order to achieve that level, in order to complete that Patipada Jnana Dassana Visuddhi, you have to develop several inside knowledges within you. That begins with the Udayabhaya Jnana. We call the Udayabhaya Jnana also. That is the knowledge about the arising and the vanishing or the passing away. And then you have to achieve, after the Udayabhaya Jnana, then you have to achieve the Bhanga Jnana. That is the knowledge about the the dissolution. And the third one is, after the Bhanga Jnana, you have to achieve the Bhaitupatthana Jnana, awareness about the fearfulness. And next inside knowledge should be the Adinava Jnana. That means the knowledge about the misery. And the next one is the knowledge, the Adinava Jnana. Likewise, Bhanga, Udayavaya, Bhanga, Bhaya, Adinava, Munchitu Kammeta, Patisankhanu Passana, then we have to achieve the Sankharupekka Jnana and Anuloma Jnana. This is the structure of the Patipada Jnana Dassana Visuddhi, the purification by knowledge and vision about the path or the practice. So in order to achieve that Patipada Jnana Dassana Visuddhi, you have to achieve the Magga Magga Jnana Dassana Visuddhi before that. That is the knowledge and the purification by knowledge and vision about the path and the non-path. You have to achieve, you have to differentiate, you have to analyze what is the wrong path and what is the correct path in order to achieve the Nibbana or the paths. What is the wrong path? Wrong path is the wrong meditation actions or the wrong meditative practice. And these Dasavidha Upakkilesa, those things like the more brightness, you will feel very good pleasant feelings, piti, and you will like experience so many things within that like step. Within that level you can experience so many things if you have done the vipassana in the correct way. These if you are focusing on these dasavidha or 10-fold upakkilesa, or if you are focusing about the wrong meditative path, that is the amagga, that means the non-path or the wrong path. The correct path is the right meditative path or the practice and the 4 paths, 4 noble paths, that means the magga jnanas. In order to achieve, without achieving the magga magga jnana dassana visuddhi, you cannot achieve the patipada jnana dassana visuddhi. Without achieving the patipada jnana dassana visuddhi, you cannot achieve the jnana dassana visuddhi, that is the 4 noble paths. So in order to achieve the 4 paths, you should achieve the what you call the patipada jnana dassana visuddhi first. Then before that, magga magga jnana dassana visuddhi first. Before the magga magga jnana dassana visuddhi, you have to achieve the kanka vitarana visuddhi. That is the what you call the purification by overcoming the doubts. What are these doubts? You may have some doubts about the past lives, about the samsara, about the nibbana. how these mentalities or materialities are existing as a generation. So, was I there as a person, as a being in my previous life? Was there a previous life? Is there a next life after the death? So these kind of doubts you have to overcome by analyzing the causes for these mentalities and materialities. We call the Paccaya Pariggaha Jnana. So by achieving the Kanka Vitarana Vishuddhi, the purification by overcoming the doubts, then you are eligible to come for the Magga Magga Jnana Dassana Visuddhi. So before achieving the Kanka Vitarana Visuddhi, you have to achieve the previous path, that is the what we call the Ditti Visuddhi, the purification by purification of views, because sometimes we have that view, there is a person, there is a being, there is a soul kind of a thing, that it goes from life to life, and that is the one that is the one exists in this samsara. That is a self view. These are wrong views. So by contemplating or by examining about these namas and rupas, mentalities and materialities, you can come to a position, you can come to a understanding there is no self, there is no any soul of thing. So these kind of knowledges or the understanding you have to generate in order to complete this vipassana path. Before the Ditti Visuddhi or before the purification of views, you have to develop the Chitta Visuddhi, that is a purification of the mind, and before that the first step of this sevenfold purification path is the Sila Visuddhi, that is a purification of the moral virtue. So we have talked several facts about this Sila Visuddhi, that means the purification of the moral virtue. So we cannot talk everything about this Sila Visuddhi, but we had a brief about that. So now we are going to talk about that Chitta Visuddhi. During the previous Dhamma discussions, we were trying to focus about that Sila Visuddhi. Before we come to the Chitta Visuddhi, that is a purification of the mind, that is completely about the level of concentration, how to develop the concentration within your mind. As the Upachara Samadhi, that the excess concentration levels, or the Jhana Samadhi, or the absorption concentration level. Whatever the concentration level, before that you should have a foundation with about the moral virtue. Otherwise you cannot go forward, you cannot continue to develop the concentration. That is an obvious thing that you have to understand. That is why we were focusing about that Sila Visuddhi first. We were having several Dhamma discussions about that Sila Visuddhi. We could discuss some facts about that moral virtue. In order to achieve that Chitta Visuddhi, we know that we have to do some meditation practice. We have to develop the practice about the meditation. Then only you can achieve the concentration. What we are going to do in the to achieve the concentration, sometimes we are having some bad factors within our mind. We are called the hindrances. Because of these hindrances, because of the effect of these hindrances, we cannot develop the concentration, because we cannot focus to several objects particularly. We cannot focus about specific thing, because we have some forces in our mind that are bad forces, because they are diverting us. They try to drag us from the object what we are contemplating. There are 5 these kind of hindrances. So we have to eradicate them. We have to eliminate these 5 hindrances at least to a certain level. That means we can eradicate or suppress them for temporarily for a period of time. To a certain period of time we can eradicate or suppress them. Or sometimes you can eradicate them completely by the noble paths. Before that you have to at least suppress them to a certain level, otherwise you cannot achieve any of the results in this practice, spiritual practice. Even you cannot achieve the excess concentration levels, you cannot achieve the absorption concentration level, you cannot achieve the insight knowledges, you cannot achieve the noble paths, and the fruitions. You cannot achieve none of them with these 5 hindrances. So the first thing is, before the concentration, you have to do something to suppress these 5 hindrances within our mind. So now we are trying to do something about these hindrances. We are trying to suppress these hindrances. But before we trying to eliminate something, before we trying to deal with something, we should have an understanding about that thing, particular thing. Without knowing what is that, what is the behavior of that, what are the reasons to emerge that, how we can eradicate or suppress them, without that kind of a knowledge, we cannot deal with anything. Okay? Now we are going to deal with some kilesas. We call the 5 hindrances, nīvaraṇas. So we are going to suppress them. We are going to deal with them. So in order to do that job, or in order to do that the practice in an effective and efficient way, you should have an understanding about these hindrances. What are they? How we can understand them? How we can analyze them? What are the behaviors of them? And what are the causes to emerge these 5 hindrances within our mind? When these hindrances are there, how we can identify I am with the hindrances or I am not with the hindrances? Then we have to understand, if we are with the hindrances, how we can eliminate them, how we can get rid of these hindrances, and what are the things we can follow, we can develop in order to eradicate them and avoid them arising in future in our mind. So this kind of knowledge we have to gain before we try to suppress these hindrances. So today I'm going to talk about these hindrances briefly, and then I'm going to brief them or explain about these hindrances one by one in detail. So we can have a complete understanding to a certain extent, to a certain level, how we understand, how we identify these nīvaraṇas or the hindrances, and what are their causes, and what is the behavior, and what are the actions we can take to suppress them. So we are going to talk about these hindrances, though this is the first discourse about these hindrances. First we are going to learn, this is the first discourse about the hindrances, which is the introduction and the sensual desire. The first hindrance is Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, that is sensual desire. And within this discourse I am going to talk about these facts. Introduction to 5 hindrances, and what is the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, that is called what is the sensual desire, and the behavior of that, and what are the causes to arise, and similarly with regards to the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, and when we are with the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, how we identify this Kāmacchanda, and how we can suppress them, how we can eradicate them temporarily or completely, and what are the steps what we can follow, and how the relief from the Kāmacchanda helps to the concentration, because that is the our ultimate goal, because we are trying to suppress these hindrances and develop the concentration. So we are going to talk about the first topic, that is the introduction to 5 hindrances. There are forces in the mind. That means when we are doing whatever the action, when we are doing our day-to-day things, these forces are there. Sometimes they are in the latent tendency level that we call the anusayas, and sometimes they are coming to our emerging state, we call the pariyutthana. So these forces are coming, these forces are there already within our mind, but they are not coming to the surface of the mind every time. So these forces are there in the mind, and they are trying to hinder ourselves, that because we cannot be mindful enough, we cannot continue with the mindfulness, we cannot do our day-to-day things, day-to-day tasks with the mindfulness. So these are kind of forces, and rather than reacting to these difficulties, it is important to investigate them. Once you, when you have a like certain understanding about these Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇas, like these 5 hindrances, sometimes you can identify. Now you know what is the behavior of the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, but you should not do something like at the very moment you identify these things. You should not that much like be early about to do something about to get rid of these hindrances. That should not be done, because what the thing you have to do is you have to understand, investigate them. It is easier to find freedom from something when we know it thoroughly. That is why we are learning these things. Now we are trying to get the freedom from these nivaranas, hindrances. We are trying to suppress them. We are trying to get rid of them. In order to do that, if we have a like a good understanding or good investigation about this particular thing, then it would be more easier to get rid of them. That is why when you have a Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, you should identify that, okay, I am with the Kāmacchanda, I should do something about this. I should not allow this thing to be there in my mind, because now it is acting like this. It tries to direct me to a different direction, or it tries to drag me to something else. Because now I am focusing on something, Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa arises, or any other hindrance arise, and it tries to drag me from the task what I am engaging. There are these are known as the 5 hindrances. They can hinder our ability to see clearly or to become concentrated. When these hindrances are there, we are like unable to see the real scenario, real situation around us. Sometimes we are coming to a bad decisions because of these hindrances. So the thing is, you have to understand that you are with the hindrances, and you should not take the like very important decisions while these hindrances are more powerful. So you have to identify these things and you have to investigate about them. Then you can take some actions in order to get rid of them. So these are the 5 hindrances, the names: the sensual desire, what we call in Pali the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, and the ill will is the Vyāpāda nīvaraṇa. Vyāpādo, Vyāpada, both are correct. Sloth and torpor, and that is Tīnamidda nīvaraṇa, 2 realities, but we make them together and we call them a single nīvaraṇa, because their behaviors are same. Restlessness and worry, that is Uddhacca Kukkucca, that is also 2 realities, 2 cetasikas, but we make them together and call as a single nīvaraṇa. Doubt is the Vicikicca nīvaraṇa, that is a 1 cetasika. Though in altogether there are 5 nīvaraṇas. When you talk about the realities, there are 7 realities separately, but we call them 5 nīvaraṇas, 5 hindrances. Each of these hindrances is said to be an antidote to one of the 5 mental qualities needed for the mind to become concentrated. Now we are going to talk about the concentration later, and we are trying to develop concentration within ourselves in order to achieve the access concentration level or the absorption concentration level. In order to do that, in order to develop a jhana, we call the absorption. In order to develop that jhana, we should have compulsory elements in that jhana chitta. we are not refer that particular consciousness as the jhana. We are not referring that set of mental all the mental factors within that consciousness as a jhana, but we are referring 4 mental factors as jhanas. Like one by one, we are referring them as the jhanangas, the factors of the jhana. Altogether, these five mental factors we call the jhana, nothing else. The chitta is not the jhana, or the chitta with the mental factors, it is not the jhana. All the other mental factors are not the jhanas. These 5 mental factors, which are called the jhana factors, when we take as a bundle, we call them a jhana. Jhana is nothing else than these 5 mental factors. These are we call the vitakka, vichara, piti, sukha and ekaggata. So when we are trying to achieve the first absorption level, the patama jhana, these 5 mental elements should be there, and these 5 mental factors altogether as a group we call the jhana. By developing these jhana factors to a certain level, we have to suppress the hindrances first. These hindrances are suppressed by each and every jhana factors. How we can understand that? Ekaggata, or the one-pointedness. What is ekaggata? That taking one aspect of the object, particular object, which can be taken by several aspects. One object has different angles or aspects that mind can take. But mind can take only one aspect only of that particular object. Ekaggata is the mental factor which decides that and which helps to take one aspect of the that particular object. Otherwise, we can take ekaggata is the mental factor which helps to focus on one object for a longer period, for a particular time. Those 2 definitions can be used for define the ekaggata. This one-pointedness or the ekaggata helps to overcome from the sensual desire. When you are having the sensual desire, our Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, you are trying to focus on different things, because you have that craving about finding new things, or associate the people, to go so many places to see and enjoy. So you are trying to get more and more objects, new objects, different objects, because you are not satisfied with one object. That is the level of Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. If you are focusing on one object, that is your ekaggata, when your ekaggata is developed, one-pointedness is developed, then you are satisfied with that particular object, so you can focus on that same object for a longer period. So your Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, or the sensual desire, will be suppressed by that ekaggata, one-pointedness. And the second one is the joy, you can say zest, or the rapture, the strong happiness within your mind. This helps us to overcome from the ill will, or the Vyapada nīvaraṇa. Because when you have the Vyapada nīvaraṇa, you get angry. You try to do something bad because you are not happy anymore when you are with the Vyapada nīvaraṇa. So when you have the piti within yourself, when you have the strong happiness, then you are eligible to overcome this ill will. And the initial application is a vitakka. This helps us to overcome or to suppress the sloth and torpor, that is the tīna middha. Because you feel sleepiness, because you are not much contemplative enough about the objects. When you are not that much energetic, or you are not taking a new object, then you comes to the sloth and torpor, you come to the sleepiness. So this vitakka, initial application, helps to suppress that sloth and torpor. And the pleasant feeling, that is a sukha, you should have the different difference between the piti and the sukha. The second one is a piti. This is sukha. Piti is always have that happy feeling or the joy. When the piti mental factor is there, that mind is with that somanasa feeling, with this like the happiness or the joy. But this sukha, but the feeling or the vedana can be differ from mind to mind. That the feeling can be sukha vedana, that the pleasant feeling, and the vedana can be the dukkha vedana, the unpleasant feeling, and it can be the neutral feeling, that is the upekha vedana. Here, every first absorption level or the patama jhana has this sukha feeling. Without sukha, it cannot arise. So, this sukha feeling helps us to overcome the restlessness and the worry. That is uddacha kukkuccha. And the sustained application is the vichara. When you are like analyzing the object very well in different angles, then your doubt will be removed. So, vichikiccha can be suppressed by the vichara. Doubt can be suppressed by the sustained application. So, Buddha, you have to understand about this, how these jhana factors helps us to like suppress these 5 hindrances. You have to develop these jhana factors within your mind, and you have to suppress these 5 hindrances at the same moment. Buddha has formulated in various ways how they manifest themselves and how we can overcome them. So he has given so many admonishments. What are the causes to arise? What are the causes to emerge these kind of hindrances within our mind? And what you should do, what you should follow in order to get rid of these hindrances. When these hindrances are strong, we lose our ability to see what is happening. That is, what is the bad aspect of these hindrances. You cannot see clearly about the real situation. You get the wrong idea about the situation. Let's say you have a Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. You have a vyapada, or you have a very angry feeling in a particular situation. So you are trying to hit someone. Sometimes you may kill someone. No, you can hit someone, you can kill someone, you can use some harsh words, you can take some bad decisions, because you are not in a position to understand the real situation out there. Because these hindrances are covering your mind, and these hindrances are dragging or divert your usual or the original behavior to a different angle. That is what is happening when you have these kind of hindrances. When they are so strong, that is the situation is very bad. When you have a strong craving or the lust towards something or some person, you might do anything in order to achieve that, in order to take that object or take that person based on your feeling, based on your wish. That is the thing. Then you will not have the real analyze or the real feeling, real understanding about the situation. When they are not so much strong, still they can cloud, they can cover your mind, and you cannot see the situation properly. Particularly to know what is harmful and what is beneficial to do, so to do, say or think. When these are not that much strong, but still these hindrances are there, the disadvantage is you cannot think, you cannot understand what should I do, what should I say, what should I think. So mostly you are doing something bad, you are saying something bad, you are thinking something bad. So because of the effect of these hindrances. The ancient metaphor for how the hindrances obscure clarity of mind is that of a pond. That is a simile or a metaphor in order to describe these, what is the behavior of each and every hindrance within our mind. When they emerge ourselves, they can emerge with one, they can emerge with the cluster. Sometimes you may have these all 5 hindrances at once, because in a period of time you may have these. Sometimes you have only lust, or you have sometimes craving only. You don't have that angry. Sometimes you may have a mixture of these things. But how we can understand the behavior of these hindrances, we can understand by this metaphor. When we consider about the pond, the effect of sensual desire or the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, when we have the sensual desire, it is like when a pond is colored with some dye. When the pond is colored, the water is colored, you cannot see what is inside the pond. You cannot see the bottom of the pond. Even you cannot see your own face from the surface of the water. That is because the water is colored. This Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa or the sensual desire hindrance is like that. When you have that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, you cannot see what is in there, what is happening there, what is the real situation. You cannot get the real decisions because of this Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa or the sensual desire. Then the second one is when the heat of ill will is present. That is when you have the Vyapada nīvaraṇa, it is as if the pond where water is boiling. When the water is boiling, the heat, air bubbles coming from the bottom of the surface in the pond. So it is like it is not calm and it is not, you cannot see what is inside the pond because always these bubbles are coming and you cannot see, even you cannot see your own face from the surface of the water. It is like, it is always like a boiling water because it is heating up. Sloth and torpor are like having thick algae growing across the pond. When the algae is spreaded all around the pond, it is covered, the water is covered with this kind of algae or something on the surface. So you cannot see anything what is inside the pond. You cannot see the bottom, even you cannot see your own face from the surface of the water. Even you cannot see the surface of the water because it is covered with algae. This Tīna Middha or the sloth and torpor is like that. And when we think about the restlessness or the anxiousness and the restlessness, Uddhacca Kukkhucca nīvaraṇa, this is like the wind churning about up the pond surface. When there is a very powerful wind is circulating around the pond, this water is not in the calm state. You cannot see what is inside, you cannot see the surface of the water clearly. That is like the wind, the effect of the wind to that pond. Doubt is like the water filled with mud. When the mud is like mixed with the water, that water is like you cannot see anything in the pond, and the surface is also very muddy with this behavior. That is the behavior of the doubt when we have it in our mind. Then we can talk about, because we tend not to see clearly when the hindrances are present, it is encouraged not to make decisions while under their influence. We have talked this before, because when you are under the influence of these hindrances, it is better not to take important decisions while you are having those kind of hindrances in a powerful state. So you have to wait until you suppress them to at least to a certain level, or completely or temporarily to a certain level. Then you can see the situation clearly, and it will help to take a correct decision about the situation. So if possible, wait to make a decision when the mind is more settled or clear, because when you suppress these hindrances from your mind, then your mind would be settled and clear, so you can take the decisions. The hindrances exist in everyone. Their presence is not a personal failing. So we know we all have these kind of latent tendencies. Okay, we call these anusayas. We call that tanha anusaya, patigha anusaya, avijja anusaya, vicikiccha anusaya. These sevenfold anusayas are there. These are in the latent tendency level, not always coming to the surface of the mind, emerging state. So when there are like suitable causes in the Buddhism, nothing is happening without any reason. When these latent tendencies are coming to the emerging state, there should be a particular reason in order to do that, in order to coming these latent tendency to the pariyuttana level or the emerging state. So there should be any like the suitable cause for that. This is the nature of the mind. Because we have the latent tendencies, we have not eradicated these latent tendencies by the noble paths, so we are with those latent tendencies. So when we are having the suitable causes, suitable reasons from the outside or the internally, then these latent tendencies come to the surface of the mind as these hindrances. That is not a failure, that is the usual way. But we try to avoid that thing, because we have to keep them in the latent tendency level without allowing them to come to the emerging state of the or the surface of the mind. Later, with this practice, we can eradicate them completely by the noble paths. But you should not get upset when you identify that there are particular hindrances in my mind. So it is very usual thing, but we have to observe them. When you identify, okay, there is a Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa arose within my mind, emerged within my mind. So you should not get upset. You have to observe about that thing. When you refer the Satipatthana Sutta, it is encouraged in the Nīvaraṇa chapter. It is said, when we talk about the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, it is encouraged or admonished by the Buddha, Santang va ajjattang kāmachandang attime ajjattang kāmachandoti pajanāti. That means when the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa arose within your mind, you should know, you should identify that by your wisdom. That is, there is no anything to do. Okay, when you identify, okay, I am having that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, it is in our mind, in my mind, so it emerged with some sort of causes. Now I should deal with this. You should not be in a hurry. You should not act on that very moment in order to eradicate them. Sometimes when you try to eradicate them, then you will get upset. Then the Vyapada nīvaraṇa comes. Because you got upset, then the Vyapada nīvaraṇa got the chance to arise. Sometimes when you have that upset, then the Uddacca, Kukkucca nīvaraṇa also can come to the surface of the mind. So you should not get upset when you identify that you have the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. You have to be in touch with that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. You have to be aware. Okay, still I am having the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. That is the pajanāti, meaning of the pajanāti. Asantang va ajjattang kāmacchanda nattime kāmachandoti pajanāti. When you are aware about the Kāmacchanda or the sensual desire, in a particular moment, after a certain period of time, it will automatically, sometimes when you are focusing about this Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, when you are not allowing the causes to develop within yourself for that sensual desire, then with the time it will decay, and in a very particular moment it will vanish or it will pass away. Then you should be able to identify that particular moment. Okay, I had the sensual desire in my mind, but now I am free from that for a certain period. That is what admonished by Buddha in the Satipatthana Sutta. So likewise, it is wise to not attempt quickly get rid of a hindrance that can be cause for a emerging of a new hindrances like Vyapada or Uddacca Kukkucca. When you try to attempt something to do quickly in order to get rid of them, that should be done with the time and the pajanāti, or you have to be aware about that particular hindrance or the hindrances by your wisdom. That is the admonishment which is given by the Buddha. So the stronger the hindrance, the more important it is to investigate it. When it is emerging in a very stronger way, in a very powerful way, you should investigate them. You should observe the behavior of that particular hindrance or the set of hindrances when they are emerging in a very powerful way. But then you can avoid some bad effects they create by your act, by your word, or by your mind. So you can avoid these harmful things when you are aware about these hindrances, even they are in a very weaker state or a very powerful state. The Buddha taught 5 areas that are useful to explore when investigating the hindrances. That is, the hindrance itself. When the hindrance arose within your mind, then you should investigate about that thing. You have to know what is Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, what is their behavior, and what is how it behaves within my mind, what are the causes and its absence. So that is natti me ajjattam kāmacchandoti pajanāti. When you had the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, at a particular point you would be able to get rid of that one. Then the absence you should know. You should be aware about the absence of that particular hindrance. And also how it arose, what were the causes to arise that particular hindrance, and how it is removed. By following what? What was the practice I followed in order to get rid of that particular hindrance? That should be understood by you when you are dealing with these hindrances. How to prevent it from arising again? Okay, you had because of some reasons or the causes, it arose within your mind. So you were aware about that hindrance. Then you are dealing with that hindrance with a particular time when you are following something, when you are following some steps. So it decayed and you got rid of that particular hindrance. So now you are not with that hindrance anymore. But you should know how you should act, what you should follow, not to have that hindrance again in future. Because some certain levels, certain practice you can follow, because not to allow that hindrance to arise again within your mind in future. So exploring the hindrance itself involves recognizing the components of a hindrance. So you have to, that is about the hindrance. Motivationally, it may come as a strong impulse to act or to cling. Okay, if you are not aware about that particular hindrance, let's say about the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, when you are not aware of the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, when it is emerged within your mind, then you sometimes tend to do something bad, tend to do which is driven by that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. Or sometimes you have the clinging towards that particular object or a person. That is because that can be a lust or the craving or something. So these things happened because you were not aware about that particular hindrance. So you can avoid these things by keeping awareness about these hindrances. Noticing the hindrances be absence is also important. Why? Because when you had the hindrance, you were not happy. No? When you are having the hindrances, it is not a cause, it is not a reason to be happy. When you get rid of that hindrance, you can have the joy within your mind, because you were able to vanish, you were able to eradicate that hindrance by following something. Or sometimes you didn't do anything, but you were aware about that hindrance. When you are aware about something bad, let's say an enemy, when you know that that particular person is enemy of you, when that person is in the vicinity, in the surrounding, you are aware about that person, because you know that he is not a good person, he is enemy of me, he can do anything bad anytime to me if I am not aware about that person. So you are trying to focus about that person every and each moment, because if you are not focusing, if you are not that much aware about that person, that enemy can do something bad to you in any time. So you are always in touch about that person. Likewise, then you will be able to avoid some bad things what could happen to you. So likewise, when these bad nīvaraṇas or the hindrances arose in your mind, when they are in the emerging state in your mind, when they are on the surface of the mind, if you are aware about them, you know, now I am with the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, I am with the Vyapada nīvaraṇa. So it is not a good state. So I should be aware about this Vyapada nīvaraṇa or the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, because you know these hindrances can direct me or drag me to do something bad by the action, by the word, or by the mind. So these bad things can happen if I am not contemplative enough, if I am not aware about these hindrances. So you put your mindfulness towards these hindrances until you get rid of them. So when you get rid of them, you have that you have that joyful feeling about inside you, because you come to a position that without these hindrances. And appreciating the passing of hindrances can be a source of joy that can feed the spiritual life. With that joy feeling, you can come to the very good level of spiritual practice, and you can convert that into a concentration levels, like the access concentration or the absorption concentration, with that joy. If you were able to get rid of all the 5 hindrances, your joy feeling within your mind will be come to a great level. With that joyful feeling, then you can you can direct your mind to develop the concentration. Noticing how hindrances arise, how they are removed, and how they can be prevented from arising in future should be improved. These things should be improved within ourselves, because without noticing what were the causes to arise, and what are the things I should follow to get rid of these things, to remove these hindrances from my mind, and what should I follow, what should I do to prevent these hindrances from arising in future. So you cannot be free from these hindrances, because without knowing these things, these hindrances emerging again and again frequently, because you are not that much skillful enough. So we are going to talk about these things further. To be present without being disturbed by these hindrances is a joy. So we talked about that. Unhindered attention is a treasure, because when you are not hindered by these hindrances, when you are not disturbed by these hindrances, your joy, that is a very good treasure. So it is what allows mindfulness to begin doing is most penetrating work of liberation. So when you are not disturbed by these hindrances, it would be helpful to practice this spiritual training, and it will be helpful to achieve the higher levels of these insight knowledges, concentration levels, and the noble paths. Buddha was pointing to this joy when he offered the following similes. So being freed from sensual desire is like the being freed from a debt. So we are going to talk about these similes in detail when we are going to talk these each and every hindrance particularly. So I'm giving a brief or the rough idea about these similes. Being freed from sensual desire, it is compared with the being freed from debt. When you have debt, you have to obey to the creditor. So because you have debt, you have taken some money. So whatever the things they say, you have to tolerate. So that is like the sensual desire. When you are free from sensual desire, it is like free from a debt. Being released from the grip of ill will, from the vyapada, is like recovering from the illness. So we are going to talk about in detail later. Being free from sloth and torpor is like being freed from prison. And freedom from anxiety and worry, we can say the restlessness and worry is like freedom from the slavery. Passing beyond doubt is like the completing perilous desert crossing. So these similes we can talk we can discuss later, so I'm not going to discuss these in detail in this moment. So now we are going to learn about the first hindrance, that is the sensual desire. So now onwards we are going to talk about this each and every hindrance with a different in a separate discourse. So this is the first hindrance we are going to talk today. So sometimes I may have enough time to describe all the details about the sensual desire, because I had to explain about the introduction about these all 5 hindrances. So now we are going to talk about that particular one, first one sensual desire hindrance, that is the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. The Pali sentence which is given from the Pali text, so I have mentioned that also, but now I'm not going to in detail about the Pali. So I have mentioned the meaning of that definition of the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. The desire for the sensual pleasure, and the desire, the lust for the sensual pleasure, the delight in sensual pleasure, the love for the sensual pleasure, the fever for sensual pleasures. These are the definition to explain this Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. This is there in the Abhidhamma Pitaka. So you can find there are a lot of names are given to define, to explain what is this Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. So you can easily identify, because there are different versions of this Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. So all the aspects, or most of the aspects, are covered by these wordings. So desire, the lust, or the delight, or the love for the sensual pleasure, the fever, these kind of names are given to like address so many aspects of the sensual desire or the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. So you can have a rough idea what is mentioned, what is meant by these Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. So the next topic is the behavior of the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa is desire of the senses. So the hindrance is activated when our sense come into contact with sense objects. We have 6 sense objects. So we take the visual objects from our eye, then we take the audible object from our ear, then smells from the nose, and the taste from the tongue, tangible objects from the body, and the thoughts or the mind objects we are taking through our mind door. So these are the causes, these are the reasons to emerge the sensual desires. If we are dealing with these objects in a bad way with ayoniso manasikara, we are contemplating these things in a bad way, then the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa can emerge, because the latent tendency can come to the emerging state. Every time we point out concentration at our practice, this hindrance may pop up and distract us. So when we are trying to develop our concentration, always these because hindrances pop up and emerge, and they are trying to disturb us. Because I have mentioned previously, because this Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa is eradicated by ekaggata. What is the concentration? Concentration is the developed ekaggata mental factor, because when you can focus to one object for a longer period, that is done by the ekaggata mental factor. Okay, so when the ekaggata, the quality of the ekaggata is developed, then we say it is samadhi or the concentration. So this the ekaggata cannot come to a developed state when you have Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. What is the behavior of the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa? It tries to take different object, because it will not get satisfied with one object. You cannot focus on one object, because that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa need so many objects, because the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa doesn't allow you to satisfy with one object. That is the behavior of the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. So that is the opposite side of the ekaggata. Ekaggata is you are focusing on one object for a longer period because you are satisfied, you are happy with that one object. So you can be with that object for a longer period. The Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa is the opposite side. It cannot satisfy with one object. That is why the mind tries to find different pleasurable, pleasant feelings, pleasant objects, delighted objects time to time, because that mind cannot be satisfied with one object when the sensual desire or the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa is there. So by developing the ekaggata, then your desire for the object or the sensual desire will be decreased. In one stage, you can completely suppress that sensual desire and you can develop that ekaggata. Then we can say that access concentration or the absorption concentration or the jhanas. Then your ekaggata, the quality of the ekaggata is developed. You can stay with one object for a longer period. So we call that the developed ekaggata as a samadhi or the jhana. Then the developed ekaggata will not allow that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa because their behaviors are opposite. When the ekaggata is so powerful, then the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa cannot arise. So that is why mentioned every time we point our concentration at our practice, this hindrance may pop up. Because in the earlier stage, in initial stage, when we try to concentrate our mind, what we are doing to concentrate our mind, we are trying to focus on one object. As a beginner, when you are trying to focus on one object, that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa doesn't allow to concentrate or stay with one object. That Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa arise and disturb you trying to get new objects. It will tend to think about the home. It will tend to think about your parents, your loved ones, foods, your clothes, some other pleasurable feelings you had in the past, your dreams. So these kind of things can come to the mind because of the effect of this Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. So we get stupefied by these sense objects and we start to crave them and feel an attachment towards them. That is the behavior of this Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. These all happens because with the effect of the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. Sensual desire is of two kinds. What is internal and external? Internal sensual desire is the attachment to our own mind and body parts, our existence. Especially our physical being, ranging from self-respect or narcissism. That means it can differ to a large or the very spreaded area because all these internal attachment, it can be attachment to your some feelings, it can be attachment to your memories, it can be attachment towards your body parts, your existence, your self-respect or the narcissism. So these things can be the object for the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. Anyway, it is defined as the internal sensual desire. External sensual desire is covetousness for what we see desirable externally or in others. This the first part, if you have something, your car, your home, your kids, your husband and wife, your parents, your relatives, those things are also come to the internal sensual desire. External sensual desire is when you have covetousness. That means it is the unusual attachment or the craving towards the others' properties, others' others' wealth or the money or the social states. So you are trying to think that okay, that should be I should gain that one. So that kind of attachment or that is the unusual craving towards the other people's, other person's wealth or the belongings. That is, we call the external sensual desire. How Buddha admonished to get rid of these sensual desire? So abhijjam paha, abhijjam loke pahaya vigata abhijjo chetaso viharati abhijjaya chittam parisodeti. Abandoning covetousness. Covetousness is abhijja. That is the unusual attachment, the craving. It can be towards your internal things or the external things or the other belongings. With regards to the world, he dwells with a mind devoid of covetousness. He dwells without the covetousness, without the craving, without the attachment. So that is the admonishment given by the Buddha. He cleanses his mind of covetousness. That is the way what we have to follow in a very small, brief admonishment by the Buddha. And what are the causes to arise the Kāmacchanda? According to the Samyutta Nikaya, this is a Pali sentence which describes the main reason for the emerging of this sensual desire. There are beautiful objects, okay, we call the subhanimittang. Subhanimittang means that we think that it is a desirable thing, it is a pleasurable thing, or it can give me the happy feeling or the pleasant feelings, because we are thinking as subha or the beautiful object, frequently giving unwise attention to them, because you are thinking about this subhanimitta in unwise manner, without contemplating that, without using your wisdom. You are thinking about them frequently, again and again, about these good or pleasant or desirable, beautiful objects again and again. This is the nourishment, this is the most powerful cause for the arising of sensual desire that has not arisen. That Kāmacchanda was not there previously, but you had some beautiful object you found, and you were thinking about that particular beautiful, desirable, pleasurable object again and again, but without the wisdom. So unwisely you were thinking about that particular object. Previously you didn't have that Kāmacchanda, but because about that wrong contemplation, this new Kāmacchanda or the sensual desire will help, because your behavior was helping to emerge the sensual desire. And the nourishment for the increase, when you have the small level of or the weak level of sensual desire, if you are thinking about that particular object without the wisdom frequently, that they are pleasurable things, delightful things, or the beautiful things, then the weaker, because earlier it was in a weaker state, that is not that much powerful, but with the time when you are thinking about that again and again, then it comes to a very powerful, stronger level. Then sometimes it would be very difficult to remove. And strengthening of sensual desire that has already arisen. So the first thing is the arising of sensual desire that has not arisen. Previously it was not there. Now because of your behavior it arose. And sometimes the existing sensual desire of the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, then it came to a strong, the very powerful state because of your behavior. These are the very closest reason to emerging and the strengthening of the existing sensual desire. Emerging of non-existent sensual desires, and the strengthening of the existing sensual desires. Then a simile. So I mentioned about 5 similes about these 5 nivaranas. So now we are going to talk about the first simile, which regards to the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. What is that? We talk about that simile regards to the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. It is like a debt. How we should understand about that simile? When a man has fallen into debt because he took something from a man, from the creditor. It can be like a huge amount of money. So he took a debt, and he is ruined because he spent all this money, and now he doesn't have any money to give it back to the creditor. When his creditors pressing him to settle the debt, speak roughly to him or harass and beat him, he is unable to retaliate but has to bear it all. When you have the debt, so you are like you have to give it back. No, when you take a debt, you cannot keep it forever. No, you have to give it back, return it back with whatever the thing you have. Okay, sometimes you take debts for your businesses and sometimes your personal things. Sometimes the other reasons, it can be a sickness or something, but you have to return it to the creditor. But when you spend that money and you don't have any money to settle that debt, then the creditor comes to your place and he is using the harsh words. He is like hitting you. He is trying to take your stuff from your house, but you cannot do anything. You cannot use harsh words in return because they are creditors. You owe some money to them. You cannot do anything to the creditors when they are doing something bad. When they are doing something bad, your relatives or your kids or your husband or wife, because you have got some money but you have spent that, you don't have anything to pay in return. So you owe him, so they can do whatever the thing. Sometimes they can take something valuable from your house, your like jewelries, your like televisions or anything, some furnitures, they can take from your house because you owe them the debt. You cannot return that money you took from them. So that is the simile. And how we can compare with that debtor or the debit or the debt what you cannot return with this sensual desire. In the same way, if a man is filled with lustful desires for someone, filled with craving for that object of his desire, he would be attached to it. Even if he is roughly spoken to by that person or harassed or beaten, he will bear it all. So this is the comparison with that simile. The person who took the debt has to obey to the creditor whatever he does. Likewise, when you have that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa towards something or someone, when you have that lust feeling, when you have that attachment towards that, when you have that craving to possess that, to get that something benefit from that one, so you tend to obey that person, or that you have to you tend to tolerate anything which is given by that person or with that thing. Okay, sometimes when you have lust towards the other person, so when you are going behind that person, going after that person, sometimes you may have to tolerate so many harsh words, so many bad experiences, but still he is with that craving towards that particular person. He has that lust towards that specific woman. So even though that person is using harsh words, sometimes that woman can hit that person, and some other persons she can ask the other relatives to hit that person. So all these bad experiences, bad words, and sometimes anything bad he had to tolerate, because until he cannot get rid of that craving. That is like a person who took a debt and who cannot give it back. So he had to tolerate everything what is done by the creditors. Likewise, who is having craving who is having the lust feelings, who is having that attachment, or roughly who is having that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, he has to obey that person, or he has to obey that attachment or the craving, and he is doing whatever the thing in order to possess that, in order to achieve that something or that someone. That is the comparison between that debt and this sensual desire, or the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. Being freed from sensual desire is like being freed from the debt. So when we were talking about that person who took a debt and who cannot return. One day he was able to return that money completely. Okay, he returned that money completely, and then after returning all the money what he took from that person, from that creditor, then after that, that creditor cannot come to his house and he cannot use harsh words. He cannot take what are the valuable, he cannot hit you. He cannot take what are the valuable things in your house. Now you are free from the debt. You can do something in return. As you can respond to these bad things when the creditor tries to do something bad on you, because now you are free from the debt. You have returned all these things. Likewise, when you get rid of that craving, when you have given up this craving or the attachment to that particular person or the particular thing, then no longer you have to tolerate these bad feelings, bad experiences from that particular person. If they are using harsh words, you should not tolerate those things. You can go away, because you earlier, even though they are using harsh words, you had to obey these words and you have to stay in that particular situation, because you want to get that person, you want to achieve, you want to possess that person. That is why you are tolerating those every harsh words. Now you don't have to tolerate these harsh words. When they are using harsh words, you can give up that person and you can go, because you have got rid of that craving or that attachment. That Kāmacchanda is not in act in your mind. So this is like the freed from the debt. And then we can how you should identify the Kāmacchanda. This is I took from the Satipatthana Sutta, so I will go for the meaning of that Pali text. The first thing is, I have mentioned this before also, how you deal, how you act when you have the sensual desire. The first thing is Santang va ajjattang kāmacchandang attime kāmacchandoti pajanāti. That is, when there is a sensual desire in your mind, he understands there is sensual desire in me. That is the pajanāti. That is knowing. That is, he is aware. He is aware about this sensual desire of the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. That is the first step. How you should deal, how you should aware about this Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. Because you are with the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, now you are aware that, okay, I am with the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. That Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa arose in my mind. Now I am with the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. That is, you are aware about that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa by your wisdom. You are in touch with that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. Like you are aware of that of your enemy, you are always watching that enemy, because he can do something bad on you if you are not mindful enough. Likewise, you are pay attention to that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa by the wisdom, so that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa will not have a chance to do something bad on you. So that is the first step. Then when there is no sensual desire in him, he understands there is no sensual desire in me. Asantang va ajjattang kāmacchandang nattime ajjattang kāmachandoti pajanāti. That means when you are aware about this Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, when with the time it will decay, it will not come to a powerful state and it will decay, and at a particular point it will pass away. So you will get rid of that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. At that particular point, if you are mindful enough, if you are paying attention to that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, you can identify, okay, I had the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, but now I am free from that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. That is the second way how you deal with that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. Then yathāpana anuppannasava kāmacchannassa uppādo tañcapajanāti. That means he understands the arising of unarisen sensual desire. Because you know, previously I didn't have that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. But because of whatever the reason, now the something arose in my mind which was not there previously. That is what meant by the arising of unarisen sensual desire. That is also pajanati. You are realizing or you are identifying that by your wisdom, because you are aware, you are mindful enough to catch that situation. And the fourth one is yatha uppannassa kāmacchanda pahanang hoti tanca pajanati. He understands the letting go of arisen sensual desire. When you have the sensual desire, then in a particular moment when you were able to get rid of that sensual desire, that is also known by you by your wisdom. That is the fourth one. He understands the letting go or the vanishing or the passing away of arisen sensual desire. Then the last one is yatha pahinassa kāmacchanda āyatin anuppādo hoti tanca pajanāti. He understands the further non-arising of the sensual desire that he has given up. When this the vanished Kāmacchanda, when that particular sensual desire will not arise in my mind forever, that is happen when you achieve the noble paths. Okay, that Kāmacchanda will be eradicated completely by the Arahatta Magga or the path of the Arahant. So when Arahant have that when he comes to the Arahantship, then he revising, he contemplate that the Kāmacchanda will not arise on me in my mind, that will not come to the emerging state, because I have completely eradicated that latent tendency level of Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. That is meant by this the last one. He understands the further non-arising of the sensual desire that he has given up. The hindrances exist in everyone. Their presence is not a personal failing. That thing we talked earlier, because that we all have that latent tendency level of Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, which is the tanhānusaya. We can say lobhānusaya also. So when we are with that latent tendency of tanhānusaya, then with suitable reasons, with suitable conditions, then it can come to the emerging state. It is not a personal failure, but we try to avoid letting it come to the emerging state. So there are few steps we can follow, avoiding by not letting them come to the emerging state. We call the pariyuttana level. Sometimes it is wise not to attempt too quickly get rid of a hindrance, but to use it as a chance to learn something. That is, I have mentioned earlier also, when you have Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, okay, now you are aware of your mind, now you are aware that the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa is arisen in your mind, which is not there before. Now you know and you are paying attention to that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, how it is behaving in my mind. So you are not letting that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa to grow, to come to a powerful, stronger level within your mind. So the other thing is, you should not try to do something quickly, because when you are getting upset, when you are trying to do something too quickly, too early, then sometimes the Vyapada nīvaraṇa can arise. Because the Vyapada Nivarana was not there, let's say none of the Nivaranas were there. So now the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa arose, but you got upset because it was not there before. Now Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, it arose in my mind. So you get upset and you try to do something harder too quickly to get rid of this Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. Then when you are not able to do that in a quick manner, then you will get upset. Then the anger comes. The Vyapada nīvaraṇa was not there. Now because of your attempt, because your behavior, because you were trying to get rid of that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa quickly, then you get upset. Then the Kāmacchanda, not only the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, Vyapada nīvaraṇa also can arise. And also when you are getting upset, the Uddaca nīvaraṇa, Uddaca Kukkucca nīvaraṇa can also can be emerged within your mind, because you are trying to do something unusual. So that should not be done. You have to take some time. You have to aware about that particular hindrance, that is Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, and you should be mindful enough that you are not allowing that sensual desire to grow, to come to a powerful state, and you are trying to decay that Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa with the time and get rid of that one. And then you should try to focus on a practice or steps, not letting Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa to arise again in future. That is a different thing. That is not about the thing while you are having the Kāmacchanda. It is when you get rid of the Kāmacchanda, you try to avoid that Kāmacchanda to rise again and again in future. Then how we can suppress Kāmacchanda and steps for that? There are 4 signs, because there are 4. What is how we can suppress Kāmacchanda and steps for that? So there are 4 signs. This is the main action. The main what is the very effective way to get rid of the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. There are 4 signs, objects, which is used for the meditation, which is not we call the Subha nimitta. We call the 4 sign is Asubha nimitta, 4 sign. Through giving frequently wise attention to 4 sign, unarisen sensual desire does not arise, and arisen sensual desire is abundant. Because now what were the cause? What was the cause for the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa? You are paying attention, you are contemplating about the sensual desire or the Subha nimitta in an unwise manner. Without using the wisdom, you are contemplating about the Subha nimitta, or the beautiful things, pleasurable things, or the desirable objects. Then it was the reason to emerge these sensual desires in your mind. Now the opposite side, the thing what you have to do is you have to contemplate about that particular object by getting the 4 sign, Asubha nimitta. When you are practicing the 4 sign, you can take these kind of Asubha nimitti. Then you are paying attention, or you are contemplating about these 4 signs or the objects frequently by using your wisdom. Then you would be able to get rid of these sensual desires. How you can do it? Unarisen sensual desires does not arise. You can come to a state that you are not allowing unarisen sensual desires. Desire does not arise, and arisen sensual desire is abundant. When you are contemplating about this 4 sign of the object, then you can avoid the unarisen sensual desires, come to the emerging state, and the arisen sensual desires you can get rid of them. Then you can decay them, you can vanish them from your mind. So that is the most effective and the powerful thing you have to follow to get rid of these sensual desire, the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. If you are consumed by desire, look at what is making you dissatisfied, Why are you always wanting new things? It is only when we have gotten to the root of these desires that we can start to change. So you have to think about the roots of the sensual desire, how it came to the emerging state, what was the reason, what was the closest reason, and what are the other secondary reasons to emerge these kind of sensual desires. Then Buddha is admonishing about 6 things, 6 steps what we can follow in order to avoid that sensual desires, or get rid of these sensual desires, or when you get rid of the sensual desires, avoiding sensual desires arising again and again in the future. What are those 6 things? That is asubha nimittassa uggaho, learning how to meditate on impure or repulsive things or the foul objects. Okay, this asubha nimittassa uggaho. We have mentioned that here, when you are contemplating about the foul sign or the foul objects again and again frequently by using your wisdom, then the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa will not have a chance to arise. If there is a Kāmacchanda in your mind, it will, with the time, it will decay and pass away. You can get rid of the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. The first step you have to take, that kind of foul objects or that kind of repulsive objects or the impure object, you have to learn how to meditate. Asubha nimittassa uggaho means not just learn about the object. You should learn from a teacher or from a book, from whatever the resource. You have to learn how to meditate with these repulsive objects, impure or foul object. That is the first thing. When you are learning about these asubha nimitta or the foul objects, how to meditate with them, then a Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa will not arise. If there is a Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa within your mind, then you can get rid of that thing also. Then asubha bhavanānu yogo. Then after learning about these kind of objects or impure or foul objects, repulsive objects, then you have to do it practically. You have to develop that meditation. You have to engage with that meditative practice. While you are engaged with that meditative practice, then the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa will not get a chance to emerge within your mind. Indriyesu guttadvarata. That means sense restraint, because earlier we said through our sense faculties we are taking visual objects, audible objects, and the smells, taste, tangible objects, and the mental objects. So through these 6 kind of objects, we are getting lust, we are getting attachments, craving towards these things. That is the reason to emerge such kind of sensual desires. When you are protecting with the mindfulness, when you are protecting your sense faculties, these 6 faculties, then you can have that protective method not to give a chance, not to give a reasons to emerge these kind of sensual desires. That is, the sense restraint is the indriyesu guttadvarata, protection of the sense faculties. Then the bhojane mattanyuta, moderation in food, because why we are taking food, we have to secure our existence. We have to keep our health in our body and the mind. So we need food. But if someone is taking without knowing what is the actual requirement, when he is having so pleasant or the very desirable food, then he is taking without knowing the limit. So that is the bhojane amattanyuta. That is, without knowing the limit, he is consuming these kind of foods over and over again, because without understanding the required level, required amount about his actual requirement. So without coming to that kind of a state, if a person can understand what is the real requirement, what is the real required amount for me to take as a bhojana, that is the bhojane mattanyuta, moderation in food. If someone is maintaining this kind of practice, then the Kāmacchanda towards the foods, and then he can also suppress other Kāmachandas as well. Then Kalyana Mittata, noble spiritual friendship. You can associate some good friends who is advising you, who is admonishing you with some steps, with the steps how to get rid of these kind of sensual desires. So if you are associating such kind of friends, such kind of good friends, then it will be helpful to get rid of these kind of sensual desires. Then sometimes when you are suffering from Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, still these good friends can help you to get rid of these kind of sensual desires. Then the Sappaya Kata, the conducive conversations, when you are engaged with the unwanted things, which helps to emerge new Kāmachandas, which helps to strengthen the existing Kāmachandas. These are the reasons for the development of the Kāmachanda or the arising of the Kāmachanda. If someone is not associating those kind of conversations, which is helpful, which are the causes for the sensual desires, he is associating such conversations which is like about the saddha, about how to develop the encouragement, how to develop the practice, how to get rid of the Kāmachanda, and how to get rid of the other nivaranas. So these kind of associating these kind of conversation will help to avoid these kind of sensual desires. When you are not having the sensual desires, you can avoid them not to come to the emerging state. If you are still having the sensual desires, you can decay, you can pass away those sensual desires, and you can get rid of these sensual desires completely or temporarily. How the relief from the Kāmachanda helps concentration. Our ultimate goal, our target is by learning about these Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, by learning about the other nīvaraṇas, to identify their behaviors, identify their causes, identify the steps what we have to follow to get rid of these kind of nīvaraṇas. Then ultimately, when we get rid of these Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa and other hindrances, how they can help to develop the concentration within our mind. So, what is given in the Pali, the meaning is when these 5 hindrances are suppressed. So, you can suppress these Kāmacchanda, Vyapada, Tinamidda, Uddacca Kukkucca and Vicikicca. All these 5 hindrances you can suppress. When these 5 hindrances are suppressed, when you are not with the hindrances anymore, then he contemplate about his mind, because now he is much aware about his mind. Now he realized, so now I am not with the hindrances. Now I am free from the hindrances. Now he get to know that there is no any hindrances retaining in my mind. Then he gets the joy because the pāmojja. It is the early stage of the pīti. This pāmojja helps to appear or emerge the rapture, the powerful or the strong happiness in his mind. When the joy is there, then the rapture or the pīti arises. That is the strong level of the happiness. The pīti arises. When the rapture is there, serenity, the passaddhi in this body arises in the body. When the pāmojja is there, pīti arises. When the pīti is there, the passaddhi arises. When the passaddhi or the serenity in the body is there, then the pleasure in that sukha feeling or the pleasant feeling is arising within your body. And when the pleasure is there, mind tends to the concentration. Earlier we have the pāmojja, pīti, and the passaddha and sukha, it is related with the body. Pāmojja and pīti, which is related with the mind. Your mind is in a happy mode, and your body is in a very convenient, comfortable mode. Then your mind and body is in the comfortable zone, and then your mind tends to concentration. Then you can develop the concentration very easily. You can focus on one object, and you can develop that concentration based on that particular object, and you can achieve the access concentrations at and the absorption concentration. That is how we can describe the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. We can define what is Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, and we can learn, we can identify what is the behavior, what is the categories of the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, and what are the causes to emerge these kind of Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, and how we can suppress these Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. And we learned about this behavior of the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa with the metaphor or the simile. And finally we talked about the steps what we should follow in order to get rid of these Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa. And this is the way how by getting rid of this Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, how it helps us to obtain the samadhi or develop the concentration. Then when someone is having the concentration, he can develop the further levels in this spiritual practice. So with that fact, I'm going to conclude today's Dhamma sermon. So we have talked several things about the hindrances, in brief about the 5 hindrances, and later we talked about the specifically about the Kāmacchanda nīvaraṇa, and we are planning to discuss about the other hindrances as well. So we have accumulated so much merits during this Dhamma talk, Dhamma sermon. So I have accumulated much merit about preaching Dhamma, and you have accumulated much merits about listening Dhamma, and by contemplating about these Dhamma facts with the wisdom, that is yoniso manasikara. So we should transfer these merits to our parents, to our teachers who helped us to learn these kind of Dhammas. So may they receive these all the merits, and it may be a great cause to achieve their wished paths and fruition. And also we should transfer these merits to all the loved ones, all the relatives, friends who have passed away, and may they rejoice with these merits, and may these merits will be a great cause for them to achieve their ultimate liberation and the wished required paths and the fruitions. And also we should transfer these merits all the devas, brahmas who would like to rejoice these kinds of merits. May they rejoice these all the merits, and may these merits would be a great cause for them also to achieve their wished noble paths and the fruitions and the ultimate liberation, nibbana. So I would like to wish all of you, all the listeners who have joined with us, who listened to this Dhamma talk, all these merits would be a great cause to achieve the desirable, pleasurable results in this life. May you all the sublime wishes come true, and may you have a good mental health and the physical health in order to practice this spiritual training, and may you be able to achieve all the paths and fruition as you wish, and ultimately achieve the ultimate liberation and come to the end of this samsara, come to the end of this suffering. May you all have the supreme bliss of nibbana. May you all have the blessings of the triple gems.